You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, Episode 40, Tactical Play versus Non-Tactical Play. Today we talk about tactical play versus non-tactical play. We discuss a listener email first, which segues us into the subject. We cover the benefits of tactical play and the benefits of a more theater-of-the-mind approach. We also cover when it's a good idea to step up the tactics and when to tone it down to keep your game flowing. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and across from me, he needs to know the range so he can make the shot. Jared.
That was not as inspiring as your usual ones.
Jared, they can't all be winners.
They can't all hit the bullseye.
They can't all hit the mark.
Because you talked about range, so
That's right. You didn't know the range. I didn't know the range. It didn't hit the mark.
Didn't hit the mark. Range is important.
Range is important.
It's very important.
How you doing today, Jared?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. The weekend's getting started, and yeah, I'm gonna have a good time.
Any fun projects?
No. I need to get a haircut. I need a haircut bad.
Well, I'm just wondering, because I know you're into baking. You've got this bread thing going now.
I started making. So I'm on the keto diet, or trying to follow the keto diet. So I saw a good video on making keto donuts. So I'm making
what?
So I'm working on. I'm gonna bake some keto donuts. I also get some keto brownies. Yeah, that's the other one.
You're insane.
I'm like a mad scientist, dude. I've got 100 different types of sugar.
It's hilarious because you went on this keto diet about the same time that you started baking.
Yeah, about a year.
Self-punishment?
About 7 months after I started baking, I went on the keto diet, and I was like, well, there's got to be a way to still bake some stuff on the keto diet. And there is. If you're following the keto diet or a low sugar diet or a no carb diet, plenty of things you can bake. Plenty of alternatives to sugar. Some better than others. But that's a whole different subject for a whole different podcast.
We'll have a podcast where Aaron just talks about how to be keto friendly. You do a great job at it, so comparatively to.
I'm sticking to the diet. It didn't show up in my blood work, but it
didn't show up in my blood. Well, it's not as bad as mine, so don't worry about it.
But
my doctor looks at me and goes, "How are you not dead?"
Maybe I will be.
Death comes for us all, doctor. That's the thing. Doctors can't pull that shit on me. I will literally look them back in the face where they're like, if you don't get in shape, you're going to die. I'm going to be like, death comes for us all.
I've got a whole nother year ahead of me. Don't jinx it.
It's when the Reaper comes, the Reaper comes. More people die from car accidents than most diseases. So it hasn't stopped me from driving.
Exactly.
There you go, listeners. Look your doctor right in the face. Death comes for us all.
Death comes for us all. What do we say to the god of death?
Not today. Oh, I'm glad my doctor likes me. She thinks I'm funny.
Well, that's, something good at least.
Yeah. Otherwise, she'd be like, you're not my patient anymore.
And I'm done with you.
And we're transferring you to somebody else.
But before we get started on our topic today, I want to go through a listener emailed us, and he gave us a great suggestion about how to improve our audio. So hopefully in the coming episodes, Chris, the audio will improve, and anybody else who's listening, hopefully you notice that as well. If you do notice the audio improved, it is because Chris said, hey, you guys should probably check this thing out.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm working on. But he also asked us a question, and it was a very interesting question because Chris also happens to be blind. Yep. So Chris asked us, because he's gaming with his family, his kids, and his wife, and he's having trouble working in tactical play in D&D because he can only describe through theater of the mind right now. what's going on. And obviously, if you think about that, it being the GM, being blind, that's very challenging because if everybody else is a visual person and you're not practiced in the imagination, and thinking about how a room might be laid out, that's a very, very challenging situation.
Very.
So I sent it over to Jared. I'm like, Jared, let's find some answers for him.
I found it that night. I was so excited.
Yeah.
What a fantastic question. You know what I mean? It challenged my mind, and I loved it.
So some of the things that we came up with, there's various tactile drawing things that you can do.
Yes.
A suit around paper that can raise and lower based upon getting wet. So they're like wet dry markers or something.
So there was a paper that rises due to a specific marker touching it. It's water reactive and it pretty much bubbles up. There are others that are done through other sort of chemical processes. There's some that just when you touch it, it rises due to the how it's made. I don't know how it's made, but the key to everything with Chris and why we wanted to talk about his question on the air was because we're hoping maybe to reach out to other people who are handy capable and are looking for ways to get around some of the challenges that they seek every day, especially in the realm of gaming. And Chris, God bless you. I mean, like, first off, I was inspired by your story. I mean, like, the minute that I heard, I was like, wow. How awesome is that? I mean, like, the fact that you took on that challenge, like, just grabbed the deer by the horns and we're like, no, I'm not going to be taken down. No, you're a freaking warrior, man. That's awesome. And the fact that you get to game with your family, what a blessing. One of the parts of my email, that was, my wife and I have decided not to have kids, but I've often wondered, what it would be like to raise a little family of my own and guide them into gaming.
I'll send my kids.
Exactly. That's my plan. Yeah. I'm going to wait for Aaron to have kids.
And I'll be like, okay, Jared's going to GM Bunnies and Burrows, and it's going to get very, very dark.
The dark elephant walks before you. Dark elephant? Why is it so? Jared, they're 6.
Jared, they're coming back to us and they're having nightmares about
the dark elephant. But no, I'm actually excited about that. The potential of GM for Aaron's kids, not mine. So when they start crying, hand them right back over. There you go, Aaron. Enjoy. So it's quite the blessing. But there's the main point that I can strike out from the answering the question was really searching for what I did was immediately I did a web search, and essentially what I went down to was the most basic of things. Instead of looking at the most advanced options, I went for the most basic options. When Aaron and I first started off with role playing, we didn't even have whiteboards. We pretty much had pieces of paper and we would draw on them like notebook paper.
Yeah, I think we used a notebook paper to represent a lot of maps. We just kind of draw a map in the middle of there. And I think that's like the most common way to do up a map. And so obviously giving any drawing options to him are good. There's also indented graph paper if you want to just draw on a regular map. But obviously then you're I don't know what other challenges that possesses when you're working with that. At least the raised and lowered, because some of them were electronic.
Yes,
tactile.
I did find those.
So those are more expensive options, but those did have the options to indent or raise up on the paper itself, which would give you the ability to represent a valley or a hill or something of that nature. So you kind of get like a range of like a field on there that would make sense. The other option that we gave him was utilizing Legos.
I mean, like,
yeah, because if you aren't good with foam board, this would be for anybody who's not good with foam board.
I'm no good with foam board.
Yeah. If you don't want to try to draw terrain through foam board, Legos, just get a base board for your Legos and then just build up your battle map on Legos.
Exactly. And, here's the thing. I'm no good with foam board. One GM told me, like, help me make some terrain. I almost cut off my finger with an X-Acto knife. Like,
Yeah, we're not all Matt Mercer.
no, no, I almost caused like an ambulance ride. Like it was bad. It's like, whoa.
And Jared almost cut off his finger.
I did. I mean, it was, I got myself real good. But like, had I kept going, that would have been my finger. But yeah, it was a great thrill to help him find a way around that challenge. And for those of you who might be experiencing other challenges with your gaming, it's really diving into the challenge and meeting it head on and thinking of the basics of what you want to accomplish and what is some simple solutions, that you can do to overcome. Sometimes it's Occam's razor. The simple solution is most commonly the correct one. That really doesn't match.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But I'm going to let you have it there, Jared.
Thank you.
But one of the things, Chris, if any of those suggestions helped you, I hope they did. Otherwise, if any of our other listeners have any other suggestions, we are happy to pass them along to Chris and give you the credit for coming up with those solutions. We were just able to think of a couple off the top of our head, and after researching. But if anybody else has been like, I got a friend who plays, he's blind, I know how we handled this. Like,
yeah, that'd be great. You can definitely pass it on to Chris.
Yeah.
Other suggestions that you guys have, because I mean, in the end, we're a community. Gaming is a community.
Exactly.
And fortunately, we're a community that, not like our global community. Our global community just isn't a very good neighborhood. The gaming community is a very good neighborhood. I like that neighborhood.
Yes.
It's like the neighborhood I live in. I like my neighborhood.
Yeah, when you stray too far away, then it gets a little...
It's not that bad.
But anyways, that's going to lead us into our subject today, which is tactical play versus non-tactical play, or as Chris was describing it, utilizing theater of the mind, or, not to scale maps, very non-representational things.
Yes. So Aaron already kind of introduced, it's really a fight between highly accurate tactical gaming versus either one, not so accurate but tactical gaming, or two, not so tactical gaming, and then three, going off the hip theater of the mind. It's 15 feet. You got 15 feet. Sounds good.
Yeah. I'm going to say KYP. Go back to the KYP.
KYP,
episode.
baby.
KYP episode 2. Okay. So important. Know who enjoys having the map exactly with the 5-foot squares, 10-foot squares, whatever you're going to do, who has the map to scale so they can know how far they can move. Know that.
Know if you're going to have a player who's going to be like, well, the map isn't to scale. How am I supposed to strike with that? Because here's my thing. Okay, D&D I know requires some specificity in its tactical planning, because of like catching somebody flat-footed, elevated versus non-elevated. Are they in your frontal ring versus your rear ring?
Flanked? Do you have them?
Yeah, and 30% cover, 50% cover, 25% cover. There's a lot of specificity. I myself, because I was not a D&D gamer, and I've never really been one, but I did play plenty of D20 games. For example, Star Wars. I loved D20 Star Wars. Had a blast. I don't myself see too much, although I am what I think Aaron one time said, I wasn't a tactician according to Robin's Law. I feel like I am.
I think there's one that fit you a little bit better, but you definitely do a lot of tactical stuff. Like your nature as a person is to be very tactical.
Yeah, just a little bit. I peek around the corner instead of just running around the corner.
I mean, a little tangentially related to this. When we were playing one of our sandbox games, Open World Vampire the Masquerade, Jared was looking, we were in Chicago, and Jared's looking at, places to buy in Chicago, who's selling cars in Chicago. Like,
yes,
I mean, he's very on top of those little details there. And when it comes to forming a plan, though, part of you is not very tactical when it comes to forming a plan. You are very good at planning and strategic, like long-term abstract planning. You are not good when it actually comes to planning on a field of battle.
No, I can be pretty poor at that. I gotta get my gun off. But no, as a GM, Aaron and I, little history, we probably started off with just notebook paper, small maps. And then we upgraded to a giant whiteboard that my dad actually pulled out of a dumpster. That whiteboard came from a dumpster.
Yep.
And then, so we had like a huge teacher's whiteboard. Not as big as like your standard classroom one, but
we called it the battle board.
It was the battle board. It was pretty large and in charge. And it worked great for many, 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 many years. Then our friend Brian went away to college, grad school, actually, to get his wonderful PhD. That's why he is a doctor. So, sorry, I'm shaking the table and that's shaking the mics. Aaron's looking around like,
I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Why is my mic shaking? Sorry, that's me. So, and it was funny because when we first started off with the battle board, we put down our markers and stuff like that. And it was funny because I don't even remember who was the first one to be like, well, this isn't to scale. I don't know how far. And my friends were poking fun at me like, oh, well, Jared, is it 45 feet or 75 feet? I don't know.
It made a big difference. Okay.
No, you guys were poking fun. That's what you were doing.
Well, we poked fun in jest, but in reality, yes, it did make a big difference.
So what we started putting up on the board was N2S, which stood for not to scale. So really, I got around that because we just left it on the board for years.
Everything became not to scale.
Not to scale. But as Brian moved away, we had to switch to more. First, what we did was we literally took the battle board and put it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
That was like our first methodology, and it worked.
It worked, but it was so hard for Brian to see what was going on.
God.
It was so hard for him to direct what the pieces were. Doing effectively what you need at that point is a shared whiteboard if you're going to do something like that. And we ended up landing on, we use Roll20. Other people use Fantasy Grounds. I do that with a different gaming group. I like Roll20 more than I like Fantasy Rounds because there are things I like that you can do on the map in Roll20 that I like better.
You know what? Like Roll20 is a fantastic tool. But a lot of people are entering the market with cool, new, innovative stuff. Dungeon Fog is something I've been looking at for a little bit. They're putting out new kind of cool stuff every freaking day, and every freaking day I'm like, they've got pre-made furniture. Just the assets that they provide, like modern assets. They have a lot of modern assets, and I'm like, that's pretty sexy. A toilet that's a regular toilet.
But we digress.
We digress. So we did switch to a digital battle map where scaling did become a thing again for the first time in a long time with us. And I think a lot of our maps have started to become a little bit more to scale. Essentially 1 block equals 3 feet. For me, it's 3 feet by 3 feet because I always use 3 feet by 3 feet because that is the standard width of a door. So it's easier for me to line up doors. It's actually 3.5 feet, technically. It is. I took an architectural drafting class. I remember this one thing. 3.5 feet. Handicap accessible.
I thought 36 inches was handicap accessible. That's 3 feet.
3.5.
All right. Touche. Jared's got me.
It's like
circle gets the square. Jared's on the boards.
Watch, we're gonna get an architect who's like, no, actually, Aaron was right. It's 36 inches. You jerk. But so that's how I lined it up. I lined everything up 3 feet by 3 feet. Because I've never been a big fan of the D&D 5 feet. The D&D 5 feet I've never particularly liked, mainly because they're like, oh, your engagement range is 5 feet. It's like, actually, like, if you're gonna whiff on somebody, it's 5 feet. But if you're in contact, it's 3 feet.
In D&D, 5 feet is the standard range for everything. So that every square in D&D represents 5 feet, and like it's very particular to the rule set that is engaged in D&D.
Yeah, it's their system. I get it. I respect it. I respectfully disagree.
We also play World of Darkness,
which
primarily
doesn't have
the standard movement range and all that kind of stuff that you have. I mean, we do have. There is a general like conversion on what you can move in a turn, but in general, we sort of play with it with just 3 feet each square, and we kind of play around with it. It's a whole different set of rules in terms of how you're utilizing the map.
Yeah, it is. So one of the things that I guess I would say about tactical gaming, if you're going to engage in a heavy tactical game, just remember that combat still needs to be slightly seamless, it has to move like water. And we discussed that in one of our podcasts regarding combat. You want to make it as slick as possible.
Yeah,
add in those describers.
I think episode 8, how to improve your combat, somewhere around there.
Yeah, remember, you're trying to keep pace. You're trying to keep time. It's like a metronome. You're moving from thing to thing. And I find that overly tactical combat gets bogged down in rules lawyering. Oh, I have him flanked at a 25% cover, so that gives me a +8 modifier under. Dude, I'm not here for an algebra class. I'm not. I'm here to game. I'm here for the story.
Yeah, I think we tend to use the scalability of our maps just to represent how far something might be.
Yeah.
Just so we can kind of see, like, oh, how far would my flashlight shine?
And we've gotten more tactical as we've gone into Roll20 because it has that quick option to be tactical. But, if you're finding that prepping the tactical map is impairing your capability to create story, and trust me, it is what I've talked about on several occasions, and I'm never going to stop talking about it. Finding character pictures, NPC pictures. It used to take me like 9 freaking hours I'd spend on it. And you know what? It doesn't matter if I have a representative picture. What mattered is what the person said, the NPC, their life, their voice.
The same thing is true in combat.
Same thing is true with combat.
And tactical combat, which is always nice to have a... Again, this is why when you're gaming in person, you have the battle mat. It's really easy to draw up, a room of scale to have your players move around there. The dungeon might be more theater of the mind. The house that you're investigating might be more theater of the mind. The castle might be more theater of the mind. But when you need to draw up a battlefield, just draw up a blank space and put the things on it and say each square is 5 feet, each square is 3 feet,
And I'm not going to poo-poo those people who have the time, the effectiveness, maybe even the skill and the talent to do those heavy. Because I'll say this: I've been on Pinterest hundreds of times, and I've seen battle terrain that I'm like, holy mother of God, how could I do that? And then I'm vaguely reminded of I don't have a hand for art. Like, I really wish I did. I really wish I had the patience with arts and crafts and stuff like that. I don't even have a job that allows me to have that kind of time. And in the end, for my players, especially, I don't see you guys as very needing that tactical. Like, Jared, is that 3 feet or 2 feet? Fortunately, I have a group that's very imaginative. And when I tell them it's a purple iron armor that has no body in it, they can picture that, and I welcome them to picture that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we started with no tactical board and then sort of worked our way into the tactical board. And even when, like I said, even the way that we've played the tactical board has never been, we've never been utilizing it to get a flank or something like that. Again, this is when I look at D&D in my D&D game, every map that the GM draws for us or puts together for us. Sorry, Jared's cat is...
I apologize.
is howling at
the cat misses my wife. She went to go visit her mom tonight, so...
But
the cat is crying for her, so you hear that in the background.
We both gave each other a little cockeyed look.
Your baby.
Sorry, I'll put you on mute there for a
and
second.
she's like, no, I want mom.
But anyways, if you're playing in a D&D game, it makes a lot of sense to have the board, especially when you do like a dungeon with the 5 feet stuff. I mean, it's just very clear how far into the map you've moved, where you've moved about, and it makes sense. However, I would invite you to say that until you get into a combat scenario, the way the map looks and the way the players move through the map is sort of irrelevant. Okay, with the exception of traps, but traps can be. I would argue that it's better to spring a trap when you feel like springing a trap, or have a trap be in a place rather than fix them on a map and have somebody work through it.
And precisely because here, and I completely agree. I 100%. And they're going to be tactical people who are
like, you are wrong.
That's cheating. And I've told you, I cheat. I cheat all the time because here's my thing. If you put that trap on that map, you're like, okay, when they hit that, that's when the trap goes off and you set yourself to that. What happens when your players get really bored? They went the way that's the safest and they're just like, oh man, this has been really easy, really boring. You got to save the moment. You got to save the story. Forget your tacticalness. I'm going to move that trap from one side of the board to the other side of the board to bring the danger, to bring the excitement, to bring the fun. You know, you can't get bogged in the concrete, the wet concrete of, well, this is tactically how I planned it, and that's how the creators of the dungeon made it. No, it's about the fun of the moment. If your players are bored or, you know, there's nothing happening in this side of the dungeon because they went the way that there are no kobolds, they went path B. Move those kobolds to path B. They're not coming unless your players are like, no, we'd prefer to get away from all fights. We're very non-confrontational. Hey, if that's your group, like, no, we prefer to engage in negotiation and talk, and we like nice, clean paths. Okay, bring the fun but if you got a bunch of bashers who went path B and you're like, no kobolds in that direction, move those kobolds from path A to path B. Forget the tacticalness of it. You know, for example, and you know, one of the things that I was about to bring up and Aaron perfectly segued into it is, again, I cheat. I'm a horrible cheat. Okay, and my players will never know when I am cheating and when I'm not cheating. I will never let them know, because I typically roll for everything. In Roll20, there's a function where it's a GM roll.
It's rolling behind the GM screen.
Exactly, and I'm not sure on the player side. Can you even see that I rolled?
It just says GM roll.
Okay, so I roll for everything. They don't know if at that moment I'm accepting rolls as they lie or if I'm fudging numbers. They don't know. Really what I'm going to do, I'm only going to fudge numbers, again, to increase the fun of the game, to increase the challenge or to increase the moment. So let's take, for example, a tactical moment. You know, you got two people from two doorways. You got just a plain hallway. See, we're engaging in theater of the mind right here.
Yes.
So I've got a long hallway. I've got two doors on each end. I've got two shooters from that end, right? Now, some systems will tell you that shooter A, our good guy, versus shooter B, our bad guy. Who'd ever guess shooter B would be the bad guy? Shooter A, because he has 25% cover, you know, gets a minus or a plus, it adds difficulty to the shooter B's shot. Shooter A has a plus, you know, because shooter B has 50% cover. Now I have a plus to this. My question is what's moving the story forward? What's fun and what's moving your story forward? If it is moving the story forward because like shooter B is just a chump bad guy that you want him to move past, but you want to bring a little bit of excitement to that hallway, so it's not just you run down the hallway. You want to bring a challenge to the hallway. I will literally alter the difficulty. Based solely on the fact that I want him to defeat that villain quickly and effectively versus I want him to defeat the villain and take a long time. And I'm going to put this into movie terms. Jason Bourne, okay, fights multiple kinds of villains, right? He fights up against well-trained Marine MPs in an embassy. And then he goes up against some highly trained Russian secret police guy, right? Russian secret police guy takes Jason Bourne for a ride in that combat. Highly trained U.S. Marines, okay? Like, it's a horde. Watch the movie, Bourne Identity. It's a horde of Marines. And he's just flopping them all over the place. A couple CIA guys get involved and bang, bang, bang. And he takes them out quickly. But the thing is in that moment, it's Jason Bourne being dominant. It's not supposed to be a challenge. He's supposed to be winning. All right? And if I got superheroes, if I'm doing a superhero game or an adventurer game, when they take on the Cobalt and they're level 45, the idea is to let them feel in that moment that we are the freaking heroes and we're going to just mop the floor. And I'm going to let them mop the floor with the Cobalts. When they come up against the Dark Knight of Ashland Forest, okay, no, it doesn't matter if they're 45 and he's 22 levels, let's say. I'm going to make that fight challenging, okay? And the trick is with tactical gaming is that when you bring yourself into a strict, I am a tactical gaming GM, and this is me wanting you to all improve, wanting people to improve. If you're a strict tactical GM, let it go a little bit. Because when you strictly tactically GM, one, you're slowing down your combat. Trust me, your players are like, oh my God, he's doing geometry again.
Yeah, fluidity in combat is killed when you just are all tactics.
And two, are you adjusting your... when you do strict tactics, it makes it difficult to fudge the rolls on behalf of your player or against your player. It makes it difficult to adjust the challenge on the fly. Because they know I have this opponent flanked at 25%. Let me get out my compass, or let me get out my protractor and show you what degree, because you've welcomed that to your board. But if you finally say that, hey, I'm in control of this board, this is my battle, and I'm going to say he has great peripheral vision, you ain't got him flanked. He's got you flanked.
Again, Jared brings up a really good point there, which is that when you introduce the tactical, there is no fudging and adjusting and making the combat different and better. I mean, because if your players are playing tactical, it is likely that your villains are also playing tactical. Okay?
Most likely.
Which means that your villains will also be looking to score flanks, will be looking to get themselves into cover and get you out of They don't play foolish, and when they stop playing tactical and when they move into directions that don't make sense, your players key in on that. I'll give you an example. Just doing the D&D game on Thursday, okay, we got ourselves into a combat. Again, tactical map, 5-foot squares, everything to scale. Okay, tons of zombies and skeletons, and then there was
remind me later about mass combat.
Yes, and then there was this thing called a white in there as well. Okay, the white kicking ass were pretty low level. It inflicts fear on us, which by rule you have to just run away. Okay.
Never use fear on your players unless you're using it to get a villain to escape. Never use fear.
So again, he had his dead to rights, okay? And at one point during the combat, he moved the white out of combat, okay? Which was, I assume, him saying, I don't want to kill the players right now.
Yeah.
Okay? But because he had played the combat all tactical, everything was put on the board in a tactical manner.
It looked obtuse.
It looked very obtuse. It was like, what the heck is
He
going
had you
on
dead
here?
to rights and he's not going to murder you?
Exactly.
He's going to murk you.
He's going to murk you. He's going to finish you off.
Somebody comes into this house. I got him dead to rights. I'm not going to be like, nah, let him steal my TV.
So again, when you put the tactical board out there, just understand that is more, you lose opportunities to save your players when they're in a pinch.
You do, when you really are very tight, because all you have is then fudging your rolls, not fudging difficulties, not fudging modifiers, plus and negative. All you have is the roll fudge. And, as I have caught cheating in the past, when one player in particular kept amazingly rolling nothing below an 18, your players will catch on when your NPC doesn't roll anything above a 5.
Yes, your players are not stupid. They're recognize when you do things too weird for the situation.
Because I will tell you this, like, when I cheat and when I fudge rolls, I do it roll by roll. I don't say, like, this screen, I'm going to make lethal. Warning. Lethal warning. No, it's like, roll 1. Psh, oh, man, I just murked my player. No, he missed. He could have killed you. Psh, roll 2. Oh, I missed. Nah, I really want to hit him with that one. I'll do it roll to roll based on the story.
Yeah, if you're constantly under-rolling your players, you might want to roll one up just to make sure that your players know, shit, this guy's going to kill me.
Holy shit. And, some people might be aghast, like, oh, that violates the game. Yeah, it's a story.
Your job, as Jared always says, is to make the game fun for your players.
Yes.
Okay? The combat becomes more fun when it becomes more memorable. Did you eke out a really slim win? Okay?
Yeah.
No matter how you did it, even if it was in a tactical combat, okay? Did you breeze through a tactical combat?
Yes.
So do the thing that makes
Were you Jason Bourne?
Yes.
Were we Jason Bourne for that scene? Did we conquer and just were the big bad heroes who beat the day? Or did we barely survive that combat? We walked away limping with a bottle of vodka because I think that's how Bourne, what is that, Ultimatum ended? Second one.
I've only seen like 2 of the Bournes. So.
It's Ultimatum. But, and I know there might be people who are like, that violates the rules of the game. This isn't freaking Candyland.
You're right. It does violate the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
But it does not violate the spirit of the game.
Correct. This is not Candyland. The objective of us coming together is, one, to play a game as friends, to come together as friends and enjoy a moment together, and also to create a shared story. Your players are as much of that story as you are. Except the only thing is they're not allowed to cheat.
They are not allowed to cheat. You can cheat as much as you want.
I can cheat as much as I want to better their experience. I will never cheat against them to take away from their experience. Okay? Like, for example, I will never cheat a roll that will end a character. I will never do that. Why? Because it's not a great experience. It's typically not fun. But if I hit you squaw and that's it, it's lights out, like, shit, let the dice roll more than me. Or I will bring it down to save that player's life. Because again, as I have said before, which is the more cool moment? The hero who literally got shot in the head and kept on fighting, because it's happened. It has happened. There have been people who have been shot in the head and kept going.
Happened in our game.
Happened in our game. But I mean, even in real life, it has happened. There have been people who have been shot in the head. By the grace of God, the bullet ejected somewhere else, and they kept on fighting. That is a story of a man who did not stop. And that's the cool story. It's not a fun story if I just knocked him lights out. Not heroic.
This is sort of our golden rule within our group, is to sort of not betray and kill the players. But again, it's just you can give more flavor. So again, this is, if you're really heavy on the tactical side, I guess where I'm going to try to give my final point here. And we'll talk about your mass combat in a future podcast.
It's just a really quick thing with mass combat. Here's my stance on mass combat. Mass combat, D&D is great for mass combat because it's hit or miss. It's really hard with White Wolf. Tactical can go to hell, as far as I'm concerned, because you are trying to control like 50 NPCs, taking on like 5 characters. It's difficult enough just knowing where the hell the NPCs are on the goddamn map, all right? Or memorizing which one is carrying which weapon. Good luck saying, well, combat, Ninja B-52 was in a flanking position at 25%. Forget it. Mass combat, let the scene roll. Think about fluidity. Think about, if there's 50 zombies, you guys are crushing skulls, it's hit or miss. That is what I have learned from years of mass combats. Let it come down to hit or miss and then create a cinematic scene. do not attempt to get tactical in mass combats. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that point. And again, my final piece here, because we danced around tactical versus non-tactical. If you are a super tactical person, my suggestion would be to try and incorporate more non-tactical gameplay and more theater of the mind, more explanatory situations into your game to try and speed up some elements of your game. Okay. And if you are a completely theater of the mind person, and you want to just keep going theater of the mind, if you are going to do it, build descriptions slowly, meaning like if you're in a room, start adding things to make the room more complex slowly to get your players to sort of exercise those muscles.
Yes,
okay?
absolutely.
And, don't try to create this elaborate keep and then have everyone remember, wait, was there a column to the left of me or was there not? Like,
give them at least a basic blueprint. That's my thing.
Yeah.
In the end, here's what I generally do. At the very least, I'm going to give you rooms and hallways. I might not be able to draw that there's a table in there. Now, there's sometimes that I've gone nuts because I really enjoy battle mapping. It's a lot of fun for me. But at the same time, I'm not going to kid myself. I don't have as much time as I'd like to do that sometimes. So I at least make sure that they've got rooms and hallways, entrances and exits. There we go.
That's the key.
That's the key. Rooms, hallways, entrance, exits. And mind you, with my players, I always have to keep in mind an entrance and an exit does include a window.
And if you want to play with elevation, use stories, use something that's very representational to real life.
Contour lines are great. Contour lines are, the closer they are together, the steeper the elevation, the further they are apart, and they're pretty easy to make contour lines.
But if you're trying to describe elevation in theater of the mind,
it's hard.
It's hard, but my suggestion would be,
it's a giant hill.
It's a big hill. I mean, just like, okay, whoa, if somebody's standing on top of that, they're like 10 feet above me.
With a sheer cliff.
You're in a pit,
You're in a canyon.
Yeah,
the rocks are red with blood.
There are tricks to it. And again, like I said, if your players are used to tactical maps, and you're kind of going into theater of the mind or vice versa, going out of theater of the mind into a tactical map or a more tactical map, go representational before you get to tactical. And kind of work your way backwards, I guess, if you're going the other way.
Just great authors to kind of, I just started reading another Stephen King novel, and I found out his descriptions. He'll go off on these really weird tangents about describing certain things and then leave the rest of the whole freaking room completely undescribed. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then I looked back, and I was like, that's exactly what I do. I focus on the things that I want you to be important, that are direct to you, and I'll let your imagination fill in the rest. And just say it's a kid's room. What does a kid's room look like? Give it a little more description. Kid's room with his baseball trophies and baseball posters. There you go. Boom. I know a baseball kid fanatic's room. I can picture that. That's easy.
Exactly. Do you have anything else you want to add, Jared?
No. I'm pretty satisfied. I think you hit the nail on the head. I really do. Tactical gamers, try to a little bit more of the mind, a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more fluidity. Non-tactical gamers, maybe giving somebody a little bit of a foot knowledge might help your players out a little bit. Come to that nice
rooms,
medium.
hallways,
rooms, hallways, entrances, exits. Boom.
So, anyways, thanks, Chris. Thank you again for kind of leading us into this topic. We were going to talk about it, but it segued into it so perfectly when you sent us that email. So,
yes,
hopefully, we're able to help you out with that. And, anyways, if you like the podcast, go ahead and subscribe, review it on Apple Podcasts. That would help us be more searchable to other people who are trying to find podcasts.
Slam that like button.
We are on YouTube.
Crush that like button.
We are on YouTube. You can crush that like button. I'm working on getting the entire library onto YouTube. There's a lot of videos. They take a long time to upload there. And then, otherwise, keep downloading. Like I said, subscribe. Or follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can send us an email at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. But, go ahead and send us your questions, that your big questions you want, or send us your comments about the episode. We'd be happy to discuss them before episodes going forward.
Absolutely.
But
and we'll always ask, if we can talk about it on the air first. So don't worry about that.
Exactly. So for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, guys.
Have a great week, everyone.